The thing about living in an HOA, a homeowners association for the uninitiated, is that you're trading a tiny piece of your sanity for the promise of a tidy neighborhood. But sometimes that tiny piece of sanity gets seized by a power-hungry suburban tyrant. My name's Dean. I've been in Willow Creek for 15 years. And for the last 5 of those, my life has been a quiet, ongoing battle with the Queen herself, Brenda Sterling, the self-appointed savior of our subdivision, our HOA president, ruled with a clipboard and a permanent sneer. She wasn't just enforcing rules. She was inventing them, wielding the covenant like a weapon against anyone who dared to live a little too freely. My crime. My perfectly healthy, vibrant purple sage bushes, I loved those things, were deemed aggressively untamed and a violation of the community's muted aesthetic standard. Untamed. As if they were cougars, not flowers, I told her politely that my sage had been there longer than her HOA charter was probably even drafted. And she just gave me that look, the one that says, I am the law here, and you are merely a resident. I had endured a lot over the years, fines for a misplaced garbage bin, a stern warning about the color of my porch light. But what happened that Tuesday morning was a declaration of war. I walked out, coffee in hand, expecting a peaceful start to the day, and there it was, Brenda's pristine, late-model jet-black Range Rover, parked diagonally, completely sealing off both doors of my 2-car garage. You couldn't walk around it, let alone drive. It was an act of blockade, a monument to her pettiness. I thought initially maybe she lost control, maybe a fluke accident. But then I saw the note stuck under my wiper blade. It wasn't an apology, of course. In tight, furious cursive, it read, "Consider this an active compliance measure, Dean. Trim the sage by Friday, or this vehicle becomes a permanent installation. Sincerely, President Sterling." I nearly incinerated the note with my gaze. This woman had blocked my property, my actual legal access, to punish me for the height of a shrub. By mid-morning, the entire cul-de-sac was watching, people walking their dogs, pretending not to stare. But their phones were out, capturing the scene. I stepped outside, keeping my voice steady, dangerously calm. "Brenda!" I called, loud enough for the peanut gallery across the street to hear. "Would you mind moving your fortress off my driveway?" Her front door practically exploded off its hinges. She marched out in a ridiculous designer tracksuit, her sunglasses huge, her clipboard clutched like the staff of Moses. "Excuse me, Dean," she drawled, her voice dripping condescension. "This is a lawful immobilization. You are in chronic violation of the landscape ordinance. Until compliance is achieved, your access is, shall we say, restricted." I blinked. "Restricted? This is my house, Brenda, my property. You have trespassed your vehicle onto private land." She actually smirked. "You signed the covenant, Dean. The HOA has the right to enforce compliance by any means necessary." That phrase, "any means necessary," ignited something deep in my gut. I set my coffee mug, very, very gently, on the hood of her Range Rover. Her sharp intake of breath was the only satisfying sound I'd heard all day. "Move it," I repeated, my voice now low and tight, "or I will have it towed." She laughed, a high, brittle sound. "Go ahead. I called the local towing company weeks ago. We have an exclusive contract. They won't touch my car, Dean. They work for us." And with that theatrical flourish, she spun on her heel and strutted back inside, leaving her $100,000 SUV sprawled across my freedom like a defiant queen on a battlefield. That night, the absurdity of it all hit me in waves. It wasn't about the sage. It was about power, pure and simple. She wanted to crush me publicly, to prove to everyone that she was untouchable. "Well, Brenda," I thought, staring at the black silhouette gleaming under the streetlights, "if you want a power game, let's play. Because I don't just break when pushed. I build plans. And as a guy who runs a small contracting and logistics business, with access to equipment and people who owe me favors, I knew how to build a plan she'd never see coming. For the next 2 days, I endured the blockade. Brenda paraded around in sun hats, waving like a celebrity, feeding on the attention. Neighbors would slow down, taking photos, muttering about how far she'd gone this time. I played the part of the defeated victim. "Getting used to the view, Dean?" She taunted me once. I just shrugged. Guess so, Brenda. You win, she beamed. She thought she had won. But while she was basking in her victory, I was on the phone with my old buddy, Marcus the Rig. Riley. Marcus runs a heavy-lift helicopter service out near the industrial park, the kind of choppers that move HVAC units and steel beams. I told him the situation, leaving out the names, and he just laughed until he choked. A car, Dean. My bird moves shipping containers, not luxury SUVs. It's not just a car, Rig, I said, a slow grin spreading across my face. It's an illegally parked act of tyranny, and I have witnesses, photos, and legal grounds for trespass removal. Question is, can you airlift it without scratching the paint? Silence on the line, then a low whistle. Send me the coordinates, Dean. We're going to make some history. The plan solidified quickly. I pored over the HOA covenant, local ordinances, confirming that her vehicle was, in fact, an illegal trespass on my private property. I consulted my lawyer friend Mike over lunch. Don't drop it on a freeway, he advised, taking a bite of his burger. But if it's blocking your access and you've got the documentation, technically it's fair game for removal. Where were you thinking of putting it? I paused, savoring the moment. Somewhere poetic, Mike. Somewhere where the person who enabled her will get the message loud and clear. You see, Brenda's untouchable status wasn't just self-made. She had a major donor relationship with City Councilman Randall Thorne, the kind of local politician who likes golf and looking the other way. He was the reason the city never intervened in our HOA's nonsense. So the destination for the Range Rover was obvious. The day we picked was Saturday, prime time, early enough that everyone was awake, late enough that they were still lounging, coffee in hand, ready for a spectacle. I didn't advertise it widely, but a few key neighbors, like old Mr. Henderson, who hated Brenda more than anyone, got a very strong hint. Keep your phone charged and your eyes on the sky around 9 a.m. I woke up, poured my coffee and played the part one last time. I walked out and looked at the Range Rover, gleaming black, smugly parked there. Brenda was outside too, sipping her green sludge detox smoothie, looking victorious. "Morning, Dean," she cooed, her voice full of false sweetness. "Still thinking about those shears?" I just shook my head. "Guess I'll just keep mowing around you, Brenda." She laughed that irritating, sharp laugh. "See? Compliance isn't so painful." "Oh, you have no idea what compliance looks like, Brenda." Inside, Marcus texted. Bird warmed up. "Gidea 902, clear skies." My heart was hammering, but my hands were steady. I stepped back onto the porch, acting casual, but the air was already different. At 8:58, I heard it. A faint, distant thump, thump, thump over the tree line. Heads started turning. Dogs started barking. Brenda frowned, shading her eyes. What in the world is that noise? The sound grew quickly, escalating from a thump to a deafening, thunderous roar, and then it crested the houses. A massive, olive-green, heavy-lift helicopter, its blades chopping the suburban air like an industrial meat grinder. The downdraft was enormous, whipping the neighborhood trees into a frenzy, flattening the grass. Phones went up instantly. Everyone stunned, questioning, "Is that real?" Brenda was confused, annoyed, screaming, "This is a residential zone!" Who authorized this? But before she could finish, the helicopter descended, hovering directly over her precious Range Rover. The noise was unbearable, the wind chaotic. And then, like a SWAT team, 2 riggers rappelled down from the side of the chopper. They were quick, precise, and utterly unfazed by the chaos. In seconds, they looped thick, industrial-grade chains around the SUV's chassis, fore and aft, securing them tight. The crowd was no longer confused. They were electric. Laughter, cheers, and gasps mixed with the engine's scream. Old Mr. Henderson was shouting, "He's doing it!" The madman is actually doing it. Brenda finally grasped what was happening. She charged forward, her ridiculous tracksuit flapping, screaming at the top of her lungs. "Stop! That's my car! I'm the HOA president. I demand you cease and desist." But her voice was swallowed by the roar. The chains tightened, and with a slow, powerful lift, the black Range Rover rose off the pavement. Up it went until it dangled 30 feet in the air, swaying slightly, a $100,000 Christmas ornament suspended from the belly of a beast. The neighbors erupted in wild applause. Brenda fell to her knees in the middle of the cul-de-sac, clutching at the air. her face a mask of pure, unadulterated humiliation. "Put it down!" "You can't do this," she shrieked, but her threats were meaningless. I just stood on my porch, took a sip of my cooling coffee, and watched her entire empire literally fly away. The helicopter banked and headed toward the city center. Brenda staggered to her feet and chased it down the street, the queen of Willow Creek, reduced to a desperate figure in a wind-whipped tracksuit, screaming after her car. It was cinematic gold, and every phone in the neighborhood captured it, but the finale hadn't happened yet. Marcus, the rig, flew right to the center of downtown, over the exclusive Northwood estate where Councilman Thorne was hosting his high society brunch. The chopper descended without warning, plates shattered, champagne glasses clattered, and the string quartet scattered as the massive downdraft hit. And there, with surgical precision, Marcus dropped the black Range Rover right in the middle of Thorne's perfect emerald lawn. It landed with a dull, heavy thud, flattening a patch of turf that probably cost more than my first car. The chains unclamped, the helicopter rose, and just like that, it disappeared. The Range Rover sat there, absurd, regal, and deeply disrespectful. A middle finger dressed in chrome, delivered right to the feet of the man who had given Brenda her power. The fallout was instant and total. Councilman Thorne, furious and publicly humiliated, tore into Brenda. He fined her personally for property damage to his lawn and threatened legal action. The local news had a field day. Joe Karen's car airlifted onto Councilman's lawn was the top story for days. Brenda's power base dissolved in hours. The HOA board, smelling blood in the water, stripped her of her presidency the following Monday.